Welcome back to Prophecy Unfolding. Prophecy in 2025 is happening at such a fast rate, it's almost hard to keep up with. We see that things are escalating not only around Europe, we're seeing it in the US, we're seeing it now in Syria. Many things like wars and rumours of wars are happening at such a fast rate, it's almost hard to keep up with. What I wanted to do today is to show you just some of the things that's been said by some of the big leaders, but also I want to give you the absolute indicator of why this is happening. Many times in other videos I've stated that, World War I to me was essentially the start of the clock, the end time clock, and it's just escalated since then. But what we're seeing happening around the world at the moment, the Bible is very clear on why this is happening. And I don't know why it wasn't so obvious to me over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, but we're seeing it happen, and there's one main reason to why this is happening. What I want you to do was to watch this in full, because you have to get the full context, because I feel this is one of the more important videos that I'm going to make. But also smash the like button so that someone that comes across this that doesn't know Christ may start their journey and searching on who Christ truly is and see what's happening in the world as it is and what is actually happening. Have a listen to what Trump said first.
I refuse to bend the knee to their next endless war in Ukraine. I want peace. They want money and they want conflict, even if it means walking us into the brink of World War III, which frankly it is doing, and it's doing it rapidly.
From the offset, it looks like Trump is pushing for peace, but like the political game, we will never know someone's full agenda when it comes to politics. I've seen it happen here many times. Politicians speak through both sides of their mouth. Very hard to pinpoint the truth, but it looks like he's trying to push for peace, and you might have to have a bit of compromise in Ukraine for that, from what he has stated. But have a listen to what Zelensky said.
The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war, and they will have to fight, because it's NATO that we're talking about, and they will be dying.
What's happening at the moment in Europe and the US and Russia has a lot of similarities to what happened in World War I, a lot of parallels, and we're seeing it repeat itself. And we know Scripture tells us that nothing's new under the sun. Things that have happened before generally happen in cycles. But the big question I ask, and the most important thing that we need to believe or we need to know from a scriptural point of view is, we see all of these different wars happening. We see it happen in the Middle East, what's happening in Syria at the moment, and other countries around the world. Why is war such a big thing for humanity at the moment? Why has it always been such a, what I call a money-making machine? We look at the military complex, and there's just so much money to be made out of war. Why does that agenda keep getting pushed so much? And when we look to Scripture, what we have to really look at what's going on. Jesus said that there'll be wars, rumours of wars, but don't worry, the end is still to come. But just below that talks about nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom. The Greek word that was used there is ethnos, and we see this is where we get the word ethnicity from. That's where the root word is ethnos, and that can mean all like similarities in terms of cultural, colour of the skin. There's all different variants to it, but essentially what it's saying there, it's everything that's used outside of Jews, it's for all Gentile nations, and we're seeing that it's happening everywhere, and we're seeing it kind of explode at such a fast rate. But in terms of the wars, we know that was going to happen, but the one thing that I looked into more so than anything else, and Scripture tells us, when it comes to love, it says that money, the love of money, is the root of all evil. And we know that in all types of wars, many used to say about the US, more so the CIA, and not invading, but, secretly and being planted in certain countries in order to get, certain, whether it be gold and all that type of stuff. But generally speaking, money is the root of all kinds of evil. It essentially is what holds dictators in power. It gives them that power, so they'll do all types of wickedness in order to stay in that position. When we look further, one of the scriptures that really play to mind and come to mind is the words that Jesus spoke himself in Matthew 6, and it talks about you cannot serve two masters. And he referred to money being one. You'd either love one or hate the other, or hold on to one or despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. Now that's not the physical cash, the piece of paper or the gold mint coin that it's printed on. But essentially what what money can give, which would be power and influence and, you know, station. You know, this is why we see in Hollywood most, if not all, despise God, and they have to be that way in order to hold on to their power and influence, fame and money. But we see in the war machine that this will happen all the time. They won't want to let go. Many people make money when it comes to war. It's the poor and unfortunate that end up losing, the ones that are sent out to battle. But essentially what we're seeing happening is the love of money at an all-time high, and people will sacrifice other people in order to keep or gain more influence, or gain more ground. And we're seeing that what's happening in the world at the moment is more of a spiritual battle and a spiritual fight than a physical one. And those spirits will fight constantly. And you know, the book of Daniel gives us a view of that. You know, when Daniel was waiting for an answer to prayer, and it took so long because of the spiritual battles that were going on, and we're seeing it happening more and more today. Remember, don't be loving money. We can use it as a tool. Love God first, put Him first. And I have to tell myself that all the time. You know, when you work in the corporate world, you're striving to make more. And for me, cash, money, that's all just a tool to get the things that we need for our everyday lives. But when we start to put that number one, you start to despise God. The scripture is clear on it. So we have to be aware that not only is there, you know, the small minutiae going on that generally happens in war, but people don't want to let go of power, which essentially money gives them that power. So essentially they love money more than they do God. So we need to be aware that this is one of the main things that's happening at the moment in the world. But remember, Christ came. He lived a perfect life. He sacrificed himself in order that we can gain entry to Him, to God, and to a relationship with God. He died, He went to the grave, and more importantly, He rose again. This is essentially the gospel news wrapped up in a ribbon, that He has defeated all of what's happening at the moment, and that a day is going to come, we're told about in Revelation, when Armageddon, when that happens, Jesus will come and defeats them all with the word of His mouth. So it's very, very close in terms of prophetically speaking, but now we still have time to preach and share the gospel of the good news. Remember, regardless of all the kind of the problems and the issues and the escalations that's going on in the world, God's always in control, and keep the faith.